Okay guys, so today we are going to go into a new chapter. This chapter will be the chapter for your assignment. So kita boleh laju sikit, okay? So this is an introduction to organic chemistry. Alright, so organic chemistry basically is having lots of hydrocarbon chains in your molecules, so involving hydrocarbons lah. So first we're going to get to know what is molecular and structural formula, right? So these are your learning objectives for 4.1, which is to define structural formula and then show it in expanded, condensed and skeletal structure based on your molecular formula. Ingat kan apa tu? Apa beza dia dengan empirical formula kan? And then you're gonna classify your carbons and your hydrogens into primary, secondary, tertiary, whatever, okay? Alright, so first of all, what is structural formula? Structural formula. So structure, that means that you are going to this formula shows how the atoms in a molecule are bonded to each other. How are they bonded to each other? And there are three types of structural formula. You have the expanded structure, the condensed structure, and skeletal structure. So we're going to look at these three structures. How do we draw it? How do we write it down? Okay. So the first one is expanded structure. Expanded structure, you are going to show all atoms and bonds. Okay, so you have to show all atoms and bonds. So there is nothing hidden in this structure. So here we have our molecular formula. Okay, how many atoms? Okay, we really have in a molecule, and then we're going to write the expanded structure. So we see that we have 4 carbons. So we're gonna write down 4 carbons, and then you have Cl. Okay, so each of your carbon will have 4 bonds, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so if you count your atoms and bonds here, your atoms, you will have this exact number from your molecular formula. So expanded structure maksudnya tunjuk semua atoms and your bonds, okay? Alright, and then you're gonna you have the condensed structure. So condensed macam apa? Macam condensed milk, like sepekat it is mampat. So you're not gonna show everything. Ada yang you ni lah kasih dia tak show everything lah, tak show all the atoms, tak show all the bonds. So it doesn't show single bonds between carbon and hydrogen atoms, but double bonds and triple bonds are shown. Okay, and all atoms are attached to a carbon are written immediately after that carbon. Subscripts are used to indicate the number of identical groups attached to a particular atom. So here we have our molecular formula. So first of all, you have to draw your expanded structure to memudahkan this writing the condensed structure. Okay, so I'm going to show you how. So first you have 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons here kan. So let's look. We are going to write, you can first write daripada kiri. Okay, CH3, and then you have CH2, 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 and then Cl. So how are you going to write that one? Macam biasa je, CH3, CH2, 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 and then Cl. Okay, that way, or you can do bracket. Okay, so apa yang awak ada yang sama? You have this one kan, this unit CH2, CH2, CH2 tu ada 3. So that means you can write it this way. You have CH3 and then CH2, letak bracket, and then you have 3 of that, and then Cl. Macam tu. Okay? So that's 2 ways to write your expanded structure lah. Okay. Next we have the skeletal structure. So skeletal structure ni bila awak dah pro, usually chemists will use skeletal structure to show your molecule. Alright, so in skeletal structure, obviously dia cakap skeletal, maksudnya you are going to only show the carbon skeleton, and your functional groups. Right, so your hydrogen atoms will not be written. So you're not going to show your hydrogen atoms. So other atoms like oxygen, chlorine, nitrogen, and apa-apa selain hydrogen you will show. Okay. So from our expanded structure, you can draw your skeletal structure. So you are going to see how many carbons you have. Sebab ini kita nak tengok carbon skeleton dia. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means you have 4 carbons. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Macam tu. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4 carbon. But here you have Cl. That means that you're gonna tambah one more bond for Cl. So ini Cl. Okay. So that means you still have 4 carbons here. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you're not gonna show your hydrogens. Okay. Hydrogens ni semua tak payah tunjuk. Hydrogens dia actually ada kat sini. But tak payah tunjuk. Okay. Because skeletal structure memang macam tu. You only show your carbon skeleton dengan functional groups. Alright. So here you have haloalkane lah sebenarnya. Dia punya functional group. Okay. So this is a way, a suggestion for you to write. How to construct your notes. Okay. So, alright. So let's do this one example. So you have to draw the expanded condensed skeletal structure for the following compounds. So here you are given the condensed structure. Tengok here, look here. You have 2 methyl groups. Okay, that means this one, it is attached to this carbon. Okay, siapa lagi yang attached to this carbon? Hydrogen. Lagi? Ni hydroxyl group, this phenol. Okay, so that means how does your expanded structure look like? So apa-apa pun, when you are given any of the structural formula, you first draw your expanded structure sebab awak tak perlu lagi kan. So awak draw your expanded structure. So your expanded structure will look like macam mana? You have carbon 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you have hydrogen, you have 2 methyl groups, and then you have this hydroxyl group. Alright, so that's your, sorry. Betul ke tak saya buat tu? Salah. Kenapa salah? Sebab saya tak tunjuk semua bonds. Kan you have to show all your bonds and all your atoms. So that means you have to show the hydrogens. Okay. Alright. Ni oxygen dengan hydrogen. Okay. So that is how your expanded structure should look like. So skeletal structure macam mana? How does it look like? So you have this 1, 2, 3 carbons that is attached to each other. So your drawing will look like this. And then you have this. Okay. So here you have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So ada this group. Okay, boleh? So macam tu lah awak try buat yang lain Okay, try doing the rest. Alright. Banyak exercise. Okay. So there's another way for you to draw your structural formula in 3 dimensions. So 3D, that means that you will show how the bond punya orientation. Okay, in space. So maksudnya dia out of the plane of paper. Contoh awak ada satu kertas, lepas tu awak ada molecule yang keluar, ada yang on the plane of paper, and then lagi satu kat belakang. Macam tu, okay, kat bawah. So here, let's see, you have CH3Br. So at this carbon, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 bonds. So you can imagine the tetrahedral shape since you have 4 bonds. So you can draw the 3D structure for this molecule, okay? So let's look here. Here you have your carbon, okay? So ini atas, ni bawah, okay? Ini depan, Maksudnya awak imagine dia keluar daripada kertas tu, hydrogen tu menghadap muka awak. Yang ni to the back. Okay, backward. So that means that it is at the back. Dia keluar out of the plane of paper. So let's see like macam ni kan. So hydrogen yang ni keluar ke depan, yang ni keluar ke belakang. Okay, faham tak? That's how you imagine it. So it doesn't matter macam mana awak punya apa ni, awak punya wedge dengan dash tu, dia solid lines tu dia macam mana dia punya arrangement. Macam ni pun boleh juga. Ni depan, ni belakang. Okay, so that is your 3D structure lah, macam tu. Okay, letak je mana-mana. Alright, so ni awak boleh buat sendiri. Alright, now you can also classify, okay, mengkelaskan awak punya carbon and hydrogen atoms, okay, in your organic molecules. So there are 3 classes. You have the primary, secondary and tertiary, ada 4 and quaternary classes for carbon. Same goes to your, okay, bukan same goes. Your hydrogen pula, you can have primary, secondary and tertiary hydrogen. Okay. So how do we classify them? You are going to look at, for carbon, you are going to look at one carbon. So dia attached to how many carbons? Okay. So depending on how many carbons it is attached to, then that will be its classification lah, class lah. Hydrogen pula, it will depend on the class of your carbon. So that means that if you want to classify your hydrogen, you have to first classify your carbon atoms. Okay. Okay, so let's first look at this molecule here. Okay, so let's look at this carbon. This carbon is attached to 1, 2, 3 hydrogen and 1 carbon. So that means that this carbon is a primary carbon. Okay, how about this carbon? How many carbons is it attached to? 1 je kan juga. So that means dia pun primary carbon. Okay, how about your hydrogen? This hydrogen, it is attached to a primary carbon, therefore it is a primary hydrogen. Same goes to the rest as well. Okay, how about this one? Okay, it is primary hydrogen as well sebab dia attached to the primary carbon, macam tu. So yang ni secondary. So if you look here, your carbon here, it is attached to 1, 2 carbons. That means that this carbon is a secondary carbon. Okay, yang ni, this carbon is attached to berapa carbon? 1 kan? So that means that this is a primary carbon. Okay, so this hydrogen, these hydrogens, they are primary hydrogens. Okay, how about this hydrogen here? It is attached to this carbon, secondary carbon. That means that this hydrogen is a secondary hydrogen. Okay, alright, boleh buat yang lain. Okay, yang ni boleh buat sendiri, fikir-fikirkanlah. Alright, so let's say if you have this carbon here that is attached to 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons. That means that it is only attached to carbons je, no hydrogens. That means this carbon is a quaternary carbon. Okay, this one, dia attach kepada berapa carbon? 1 je kan? So that's primary carbon. Okay, so do you have any hydrogens attached to this carbon? No, right? How about this hydrogen? Apa dia punya class? It is, since this carbon is a primary carbon, that means these hydrogens are primary hydrogens. Okay, alright, so ni macam complicated, tapi actually just take your time and try doing it yourself. Okay, okay, to make it easy for you, here you have a benzene ring ni kan. You have to see berapa hydrogen it is attached to. So 1, 2, 3, Maksudnya 1, 2, 3 bond. So maksudnya dia ada lagi satu bond. Okay. Benzene ring selalu macam ni. How about here? Ada tak lagi, boleh tak buat lagi satu bond? Tak boleh kan? Sebab dah ada 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So try lah buat yang tu. Alright, habis dah 4.1. Cut. So make sure to do the examples and exercises in these notes and finish tutorial for chapter 4 daripada number 1 to number 3. Right. Okay, bye.